Hey, what's up? It's your boy L7. That's right. It's time for another show. We got the panel right here. We got a Democrat, we got a Republican, we got an Independent, and we got a Libertarian in the room, right? I guess I'm technically Democrat. I'm registered green right now, but I have worked with the Democratic Party. I am willing to enter the Democratic Party, enter and exit at will, and I am actually working with a lot of Democrat stuff. Yeah, so not always proud of it, but there we go. Yeah, look, I am willing to dip in that pool. Yeah, so let's be real. We got over here. I'm gonna let each one of these panelists introduce themselves. Go ahead. I'll start off with my boy Israel. Go ahead.
Hey, it's Izzy from Big Talk Little Talk. I do political commentary for fun, and I usually put out something every day. You can check it out, Big Talk Little Talk. And I'm more libertarian and becoming even more extremely libertarian as time goes on.
Okay, go ahead. Next is gonna be Lisa. Haven't heard from her in a while. That's actually my co-host of Taking Action Group, Tulsi Action Group, for a while. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa. Very involved politically in Los Angeles, and also a member of several Black activist groups. And I've jumped all over the political spectrum, but I guess I can call myself I don't even know what to say, libo. Uh, uh, I just so detest the Democratic Party now. No, I'm registered a Democrat right now. I just um a libo green, libertarian plus, maybe Republican.
We got a Republican in
Burn
the
it down,
building.
burn
Yeah.
it down. I think
There we
burn it
go.
down.
Republican green, Republican green. I don't even know.
She's so mad. Yeah, she's so mad. All right. What about Sean over here?
Yeah. So it's Sean Jones. I was working with the Forced to Vote Slack group. I actually kind of set up a lot of the channels, kind of all of it. But they're doing some new changes, and they're going in a direction I'm not really trying to go in. So I'm just showing up to talk, have a conversation, because I think that like right now we could really do some good if we actually started bringing people together in kind of a community sense. So just here to have a good conversation.
That's cool, man. Yeah. Just to big up these guys a little bit more, Sean, I think he worked on the Slack for Force the Vote, which is very cool. That's a cause I support. Lisa over here has a long active background. She actually worked back on the parole campaign, so she's been doing activism since the 90s, like myself. Maybe even longer. Who knows? Yeah. We got my boy Israel over there. He produces for a lot of top shows. He's actually been an inspiration and kind of got me involved with other YouTubers in a way. So he's kind of like been an innovator, and he changed my style up a little bit, which has been really paid off in big ways. So definitely subscribe to my man Big Talk Little Talk. Yeah. All right, so boom. Today we're going to actually, as you know, this special series is to talk about what we as different parties, what we can agree on. So the first topic, we're going to go round table. Yeah, we'll start off with me, then we'll go to Israel, then we'll go to Sean, then we'll go to Lisa, and we'll go round, 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 right? Yeah. And the first issue is I'll say, are you guys all familiar with who Assange is? Can we
Yes.
all agree to support Assange?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh
Yes.
my goodness. Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
Israel, you up next. Let's see what we could agree on.
Yeah. Well, I think that, the government going after Julian Assange is definitely not something I'm okay with. And I don't think anybody should be okay with. Freedom of speech and the free press is an important part of this country. And it's been slowly eroded. And you're seeing more and more control of the government stepping in and expanding the bounds of its powers to the point where, we're going after journalists who aren't even, members of this country. I think he's from like Australia or another part of the world. And I think if you allow this to happen, it opens the floodgates for a lot of bad things. I mean, we saw with the impeachment, that's going to lead to a floodgates of, very destable politics in Washington, D.C. Same thing with like this and the press, it really eroding freedom of the press.
Okay, so maybe can we come to an agreement? Can you give us something that maybe we could all agree on? Like maybe a statement, you know?
Yeah, don't extradite Julian Assange.
Okay, that's cool. Another Assange. What about you, Sean? You have something that it could be a different topic, yeah? Hopefully it is, yeah?
Yeah. So I guess my position would be I think that like the biggest issue right now within the government is corruption and it's inherent. And the biggest problem I think is just there's a lack of education for the general American public to actually comprehend and understand that like the reason that we're in the place that we're currently in is because of the fact that we don't actually have representation in Congress. We don't have it for Democrats. We don't have it for Republicans. And even more so than that, like, one of the major reasons a lot of people like me, you know what I mean, who I'm independent, but I had to vote, Democrat because of Bernie. But at the end of the day, like, we got people like AOC. Like, people forget AOC was not just AOC just didn't win because of her district. AOC won on national support. And the reason we supported people like AOC, Ilham, Omar, and Rashida Tlaib was because of the fact we wanted representation within Congress.
All right, so I like that, right? But in terms of the framework of what we can agree on, right? Because we could ask, like, we could come to an agreement. We're all, like, against corruption. We could come to an agreement, right? But do you have a proposed solution that maybe we could all agree on?
Yeah.
Okay, so how can we move it forward?
We come together. Would you guys agree that it's better for us to work together against corruption inherently and potentially trying to bring a movement of people together that inherently stand against corruption of either the Democrats or Republicans so that we can actually ensure that when we do need allies, we have them?
Yeah.
Well, to tell you the truth, that I'm not sure that I can really 100% agree with that, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, what would your position be on that?
The thing is that it doesn't matter whether Democrats or Republicans or not Democrats or Republicans. Just because you're not a Democrat or Republican doesn't automatically elevate you to a position of higher trust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
I mean, just being Democrat or Republican does have, like, higher suspicion, but, like, I guess maybe, so I guess you could see it that way. But the thing is that I've been part of left movements for a long time. Yeah, one of my very first experiences that I remember when I was back in my 20s was when I went to fight against the Iraq War down in Washington D.C. and I saw different leftist groups fighting to take credit for running the march. At the beginning of the march, right? We're supposed to be there in solidarity, and this has been going on for a long time, right? International Socialist Organization versus Workers' World, right? There's always been, right, versus Green Party, another socialist organization, always battling it out, right? It's ridiculous. No, I'm tired of losing. I've been losing for 20 years, no more. Yeah. So
Yeah. No,
I agree with you.
and
The thing is that, look, if you want to take over the nation, right? Yeah. The Democrats and Republicans should just be a path on the way to victory. How are we going to beat the nation when we can't even beat the Democrats, when we can't even beat the Republicans? Right, that's why I'm like a little bit like MPP. I think should be able to take over the Green Party, or Yang Gang should be able to take over the MPP. And these little groups should be active rather than just, like, poo-pooing and going to their own corners, right, and then turning their backs on each other. They need to learn to work together. That's what this is all about, because the leadership is scared to let go of the power, right, because if they merge the groups together, they may lose their own position. You have to sacrifice that for the good, man. How is 90% of the people getting beat up by the one? It's ridiculous. It's because we're split, and the only reason why it's allowed to happen is because of our sub leaders. They need to move out of the way for the people's sake. So the whole Democrat-Republican thing, I think, is the MPP talking point, kind of. And I get it. I've been part of the Green Party for over 20 years. I have been part of this movement for a longer than a lot of people have been alive. You know what I mean? For them to just come up and use easy words like that, it's true to an extent, but you got to go deeper.
Yeah, no, I would just say that in response, it's talking about the Democrats and Republicans is just a means to an end to help people comprehend the actual inherent level of corruption because of the fact that the corruption of the Democrats and Republicans is so blatant and so easy to point out.
Here's another thing too, right? Yeah.
You could get one quick that you could actually get, I think, a good deal of people to begin to realize and wake up to the fact, like, oh, our government is captured. And I do agree with you 100%. I think we need to start at the grassroots. You know what I mean? That these organizations end up becoming like, funneling people to the Democrats, funneling people to Republicans, when in reality we should be working on dealing with the individuals and the individual people so people can stand up and
speak.
So
I would agree. The thing is that, right, if we can't agree, I want to just really move I would like to talk more in depth about this. There's a guy named Richard Idris. I think he's got a wonderful, really, I think it's a problem of success self, because you notice that you said AOC has the same problem as well too, right? Yeah, it's not because Democrats are magically bad, right? It's because of success itself brings these issues. Success, right? Look at international socialist organizations. They went down for, I think, sexual hanky-panky with, right? Anytime you have a protected leadership that gets installed, it's always an issue, right? Yeah, not because of it's Democrats, Republicans. Right? Green Party has their own problems this cycle, and for many years, yeah. So it's not like there's not Democrat a replica, not a magic solution. But I'd like to once again see what we can agree on. So for example, like maybe election integrity, or one thing we could agree on is that the debate structure is inherently unfair to third parties, right? Yeah, and we could say, for example, like we could make let's agree on this. We could all agree that we want to institute local laws. Yeah, you know how they black out like football games if they can't fill the stadium? We will black out your debate if you do not allow third parties to have a fair shot, or independent candidates, right, to have a fair shot in these debates. And you cannot make rules where they can only have rules in in mainstream media. Like, you have your own internal rules, right? But guess what? Your company still has to meet our legislative standards, what laws we put in place. So that's a solution we can work on right now. You get what I mean? Can we all agree to that? To maybe try to install locally laws, right, that will prevent, right, the DNC and the Republican National Committee from manipulating debates in a way that is unfair to public information.
Yeah.
Can we
I
agree
mean,
on that?
I 100% agree with
Yeah,
that.
well, I agree that localizing action is a lot better than a national effort, just because how different the states are. And when you do it locally, you have a better chance. You look at marijuana and what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, that's more of a free market solution. The free market is driving that demand and putting that pressure on politicians to act on. But there's been a lot of activism with marijuana legalization from all sides. It hasn't really been politicized the way other issues get politicized, like healthcare. So I would take a page. I would just recommend that to activists, is to look at what the marijuana industry has done in its activism and its marketing and its efforts to go state by state and create efforts in each state, because that's been really successful.
Okay, so you can agree, right, with the supposition that locally, right, we do want to pass laws to try to fight against, unfair debate practices used by Democrats and Republicans to unfairly portray their candidates and to stifle the candidacy of independents and third-party organizations. You can agree that, you would support local laws that would get those things done?
I mean, sure. I just think
Okay.
that, to me, it's kind of a fruitless effort, because the Democratic and Republican parties are so
I understand that.
corruptive.
Yeah. Also, Lisa, can you also agree to that? Then we will have another. I will display that on the screen as another thing that we've accomplished, and we've all agreed to as Democrat, Republican, independent, right, and a libertarian, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. The idea is that we agree to pass local laws to fight against the unfair practices of Republican and Democrat Party to control debates.
Can you hear me?
Huh? Lisa, are you there? Can you hear her?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Did she agree?
Lisa, did you hear the question? Yeah, sorry. I guess we're having some audio issues.
All right.
But
we're going to wait on her. Israel, it's your turn. Yeah, do you have something that you would like to propose, right? You have a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent. We have the world in front of us, right? Yeah. And the world can hear that we can come to an agreement on an issue. It could be about marijuana legislation. It could be about, right, one issue that I would hope that we could address today was maybe healthcare. We could go in depth. We could go a little bit, quick. What can we agree on?
Well, I think money in politics is one of the biggest things, because that's what allows, the unholy marriage between big business and politicians and the government. And, as someone who believes in the free market, oftentimes people misconstrue what libertarians mean by such things. And then they'll put titles on like, oh, these monopolies are directly tied to capitalism, when if you actually look at it, I can't think of one single monopoly that doesn't have the government's involvement in it, right? So I would say that money in politics, the ability for them to close the door to outside competition and not allow the market to operate freely how it should be. So, and I think that's something that a lot of people I've felt can agree on, is money out of politics.
Okay, wait a second. Okay. So when you talk about money out of politics, are you also talking about like you're taking away the government's ability to use tariffs and things like that?
Yeah, I think tariffs are horrible. I mean, if you have a monopoly in the country, Think of like the automotive industry, right? Japanese cars were able to come in, lower the prices, and really, chip away at those kind of monopolistic automotive industries. And a lot of Americans benefited from that, from price. The prices were lower. Oftentimes the quality was a little bit better. I mean, my Honda is still running and it's like 6, 7 years old. So, I have a big issue with tariffs. Not a lot of libertarians agree with that, but yeah, I'm becoming more and more radicalized to that extent because, this country has never really operated as a capitalist country. It's more of a corporatocracy.
Well, I'm not so quick to take any tools off the table.
But
You know what I mean?
getting money out of politics would also include lobbying. Like I think it's morally unethical
Maybe we
to
could come to an
allow,
agreement
let's
on
say, like
lobbying.
the rubber industry to come in and say, well, we want to keep these people out. Can you help us here? We'll donate to your campaign, or, here's some legislation we'd like to see passed. I think that that's also morally unethical.
I mean, I would say that I agree with your point in general. The issue is that capital, as it's been, has been so consolidated in the hands of so few that if you were just going to like just jump right back in without reequating the ground for some level of equality, because like the free market as it stands should be a representation of kind of the will of the people. You know what I mean? To be a representation of, I can use my money as a representation of my voice within the market and such. It's just that what has happened is there's been so much just blatant corruption that more and more and more and more of the money that has been generally able to be had by the general population has got into the hands of so few people that to just re-jump into that situation, I think would cause the same problems, because if you have $1 billion, you have like you have bully money. You know what I mean? It's like playing poker. If I come in there with $10 and
Hey,
you
quick
have
question.
$100,000,
Yeah. Have you heard of the
No, I
concept
feel
of have you heard of the proposed solution of democracy dollars?
It was Yang who kind of got me thinking about this, that very topic. It's an incredibly interesting
Okay, so
point.
just for the viewers, why don't you tell them what democracy dollars is and whether you support it or not, and then maybe we could have the whole panel decide whether we just support democracy dollars as a concept or not.
Okay, so Andrew Yang proposed the idea of a UBI, which is a universal basic income. The universal basic income was pretty much like $2,000 to every American, and because of the fact that $2,000 to every American to kind of
democracy dollars is separate from UBI. You're not saying democracy dollars is UBI, is it? No.
I thought that they were the same thing.
No. Democracy dollars is something different. Yeah. Okay. So the idea of democracy dollars is that each citizen of the United States could be given a $100 voucher, to assign to any candidate that they want or to any party that they want. That way, that would create a huge power imbalance, because right now, like, if you take the whole population and multiply it by $100, all of a sudden that puts the corporations on the back foot as in terms of lobbying, and it allows the people to fight against the money. So actually, I like that idea better than UBI, because I agree with you that corruption is the number one problem, and I think that does a great way to empower the people right away. But also remember that the people are sheep to an extent, and the huge amounts of marketing dollars will go towards, unfairly convincing the people of stupid stuff like, that Joe Biden is the answer. I'm sorry, Look, I'm the Democrat, so I get to say it. Like, he's not really the answer, but, like, what I'm saying? Like, huge amounts of marketing dollars will be spent doing that. But I do think that's an interesting way to take on corruption. So that was a general idea that I supported, and I do like solutions-based ideas versus saying, oh, it's a problem, right? Yeah, then we have to come up with a solution. We can't just complain about it. We got to come up with a solution. So democracy dollars, that's what democracy dollars is, folks, yeah? Is everybody down with that particular style of implementation? Sean, would you be down for that?
I'd have to look into it a little more, but it sounds, from what you said, it sounds all right. I mean,
that's cool. Yeah, it's a cool concept, right? If you guys want to think about it more, look it up. Yeah, it's not a problem. We convene every week, and look, I know there's some people that are interested. Some people, we could see the panel is very different in makeup from last time. We'll see. Today's Valentine's Day. I don't know, but like I said, we don't have to be leaders in this, right? I don't need to be telling anybody what to do. You can just run your own panel similarly. Reach out to us, put in the comments, right? We'll link up, I hope that you guys do this on your own, This could be like, this is very memeable. This can really go, you can do this on your own and do it, You could do planking, or you could do this, I think this is a good time.
I'm a millennial, bro. I never got into that. You can't. I had to have some level of integrity.
I would rather do this, Okay. So democracy dollars, we're talking about corruption. Who was the last person to talk about corruption?
I mean, Bernie, but yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
So did you have like another so the democracy dollars unfortunately did not go through, you know what I mean? But on corruption, do you have another idea maybe how we could fight against corruption that we could all agree
Uh,
on?
I mean, it's just I would say accountability for the corporate media. I think would be hugely important. If they actually were held accountable for kind of the bullcrap that they did, I think the country would benefit
And who are they? Right,
overall.
they are accountable. Unfortunately, they're accountable to the wrong people right now. They're accountable to their bosses, right? So how do we bring right? Yeah. So what are you trying to do? Like create an institution? Like honestly, our government system, right? All the officials that we have now already in bed. So anybody you appoint from academia, anybody you appoint from an official position is already going to just back up the power structure that already exists. You see what I mean? So who's
Yeah,
going to be the arbiter and who's going to be the who's going to hold them accountable?
I feel like we need more media, not the cleaning up of current media. I think,
yeah,
you open it up like we had the Telecommunications Act. Every single time you look back in history, it's your government that screws you over. These giant companies like CNN and all of them, they understood that, it was better for them. It kept competition out. Fox News is always kind of the boogeyman for them because it was, look how much it took just for Fox News to get on air and to compete. So, and then you look at the current examples where they're fear mongering about, white supremacy or like the election steal stuff. And they took down Parler, a platform where news was being spread that they didn't agree with, that they said that doesn't go and fly with, societal norm. Now, yeah, people are worried about like, oh, well, people will just go to their extremes, yada, yada, yada. But, then you don't believe in freedom of the press because what you want is basically an orthodox press that, disseminates what society deems as, the right news. Um, and I
I
think that
think
that's kind of a bad path to go down.
I agree. I think we need like more of a populist condition or populist capacity for news where people can become an actual voice of information and news to other people and with other people. You know what I mean?
Okay,
It's more of
so
a complicated idea. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably too complicated to get into right
there's this
here. But
there's this
no, I
interesting
agree.
concept right from actually this video that I like to point people out called the most profound moment in all the video games that talks about this moment from Metal Gear Solid where actually the proponent actually fights against the AI and the AI is conducting censorship on the people, right? And the AI says, "Look, in this new digital age, you have access to so much information, yeah? And you have one voice saying one thing and another voice saying another thing, and you humans have too much information. You can no longer decide what is real information and what is fake information. So now we as the computer, we are going to help you guys because you are unable to determine what is real and what is fake anymore. We will help you decide what is, like you said, accountable, right? What is the real information? What's okay information, right? And what's not?" And the protagonist of the thing says, "No, you can't." And the computer says, "No, we've controlled your whole life to this whole time. Your perception of everything that you've seen, right? Yeah, who's in power, who's in title, is controlled by us." You know what I mean? So you really have no choice in this situation. You get what I mean? And even if you rebel against us, you still got to follow the procedure. So
Yeah.
how do we decide? Like you said, who's going to curate the information, right? You've decided, right? You decided that the mainstream media isn't good enough, yeah? But they decided that it is good enough. So who's going to be the arbiter? Who's going to have the authority, and what
I think
system
you're
are you going
missing.
to put in place, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're understanding. So, whenever you have a competitive market, everybody is checking everybody. So, CNN will ultimately become better news if it's got people clipping at its heels for its position. Now, if you have it be complacent and lazy through government, blockades and all this government heavy regulation and broadcasting regulatory bodies
But
and the
don't but
FCC,
isn't
et
the
cetera, et
regulation
cetera,
right? Yeah, coming
then
from that
you
right? Yeah, isn't the regulation coming from those big companies trying to control the small companies to give themselves a market
exactly
advantage?
you get rid of the government, and then CNN all of a sudden knows that it's on watch by all the other competitive agencies, and so if it wants to keep doing the Russia, and it gets called out, and more people are going to those sources, then CNN has to start checking
but
itself, and the shareholders.
they've gone vertical, right? Now
Hey,
they don't just own, right? They don't just own the news media. Now they also own the infrastructure that delivers that media. So the thing is that, right, if you want to break back, right, now you can't be on Amazon Web Services. You can't be on, right, Google Cloud. You can't even get
now,
your
why
website
is that
hosted.
though? Is that because other people aren't trying to compete with Amazon and all of that, or is that because they've gone to daddy government to make it extremely hard or impossible for others with those resources, right, to do so?
Because
I feel like
they
it's the
have so
latter.
much
I feel like
funding,
it
they
is
can
the
starve it
government's.
out. They can win in the other markets and take a loss in this market until you starve out. That's the whole business model.
And the other issue is you're gonna like the only way that I see this actually being able to be done is if the American public becomes more and more aware of just the inherent and blatant corruption of the corporate media. Until you get a majority of the American public, like a high majority of the American, I would say like 50, 55, 60, if screw that, if you get 35 to 45% of the American public who actually understands that what they're listening to isn't news, it's corporate news. You know what I mean? They give you 100% of 40% of the news, the other 60% of news they don't even talk about. You know what I mean? So people who do have the time to actually listen to the media spend their time getting bad information, thinking that they're actually informed when they're really missing the most key and crucial issues of information.
So
while I do hear your point on the market, I just think that without the public actually comprehending on a serious level what the issue is, I don't think that real change is possible.
So it sounds to me, Israel, that your solution is actually like, creating new competitors, right, and not really legislating the big guys and telling that they cannot continue to grow at this level. They cannot, right? They cannot deplatform
put
people.
those people in place to say you cannot grow it to this level, and then they just buy them off. The government is such an inadequate agency to disseminate regulation because you get revolving doors. Why would I work for the people for peanuts when I can put my time in, learn how the system works, and then go work for a telecommunication company to rig it and to lobby politicians? You get rid of that entirely. You already have competition clipping at the heels. That's what you guys don't understand. Newsmax, OAN Network. You have all of these different things. The Real News Network. You have, as much as we all hate them and detest them, TYT.
So do you think the government has the right to say that Apple has to take, right? Apple has to take these guys onto their platform? Because, right, I agree with the...
But it's impossible because they rig it against these small businesses and force them to be on that. You get rid of those things, and then you might have other platforms that will put you on there.
And Android right now, that's it.
If
they get banned off those platforms, they're in big trouble.
That what?
If they get banned off of Apple and Android, right, they're like Apple Web Store and Android, that's a huge problem.
So what? They'll find Russian servers. They'll find Indian servers. The problem right now, look at Parler, is that the government won't even let them because they're partnered together. See, I think you guys have too much faith in government institutions when you both realize, even at the activist level, if you guys were to come in power, look at how since 2003, you said, right? Or whatever, the Iraq war, how contentious and fucking high school drama they are. That's because inherently that's how human beings are. But you put it at the individual level, you can trust me. Me and you can talk, and you'll trust my word over my entity or my group or my corporation. Because at the end of the day, a corporation is a gathering of people, just like an activist group. So that's why we have no faith in those kinds of things, is because we know when people are together or when people, they connive, they can be greedy, they can always justify something. So I have more confidence in the individual, seeking solutions.
Can we agree perhaps then that that the big tech companies are no longer allowed to engage in monopolistic behavior? Which I guess that would be...
on that. Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so what about you, Sean? Yeah? So we have a multi-party crew right here that has agreed, right? I'll flash it on the screen, right? Yeah? Big tech cannot engage in monopolistic behavior. Yeah? And that's cool. We have another agreement right there. Yeah?
And I just want to say, I do agree with you, Israel, that my where I would put all my energy is in the people. You know what I mean? It is in the people. It is in the capacity to have conversations with individuals. I just think that right now it's became so polarized and difficult to have these conversations that it's really hard for us to get a consensus and kind of move forward. You know what I mean? And I think the one thing more so than anything that the media is trying to do, the media is really scared of, is Americans just coming together without the partisan bullcrap. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're just a person, and we could probably agree on a lot. You know what I mean? I think that's what they're really scared of. So I would say I agree 100% if that was your point.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just want to shout out to some of our brother and sister networks that are in the mix right now. You know, Rockfin. I know that our brother Franco, that's part of Pan Network, I guess. Yeah, with me and Iz right there, and Jeff and D Pierce and all the other folks. Yeah, Rich Idris. There's Power Anthem Network. There's also Rockfin. Then there's also the Panquake starting up in Tulsi Locals. Yeah. Do you know about any of the alternate social network I heard you guys talk about? My Odyssey just synced up. What other social media are you guys on?
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, some of the things that you listed off for sure. Telegram, I think, is a good one. There's a new one coming out of the Valley that I think has prospect, which is Clubhouse, and that's like I don't know if they use blockchain technology, but they don't keep anything. And New York Times is running up all these articles saying how are fact checkers gonna get in there and call bullshit out. And it's like that's what we need: market driven solutions that are giving us these things, these platforms,
Yep.
that we can be more confident about voicing our own opinions on. See that, and what I found funny too is like the Reddit army came out, did everything about the Wall Street bets, GameStop, and all I heard communists getting on and saying, "Yeah, fight the power," and it's like, okay, well, welcome on board, but that's a free market driven solution using capitalism. But I'm happy to hear that you're on board with that. So you see all these groups jump in. So I don't think that we can. I don't think we're. It's impossible for us to get together on things. It's just a matter of like us agreeing that whoever's leading it is doing it for the right thing.
Yeah, there's also Daily Motion, there's Hive, there's Odyssey,
Yeah.
and just so you know, just to support these new independent platforms, even though I'm not getting paid for it, yeah, I never plan on getting paid. I know, I'm every one of my videos promotes Daily BitChute and Daily Motion and BitChute, which is a competitor to Google. That's not going to last forever, yeah. But what you guys can do as independent producers, right? I produce content exclusively for Tulsi Locals. I've agreed already. I sent to Susie. I sent an agreement to produce content exclusively only for Panquake, right? To help these new platforms get off the ground. So that if you're a content producer and you can make an extra video here or there for like one of these platforms and make some exclusive content, that's another way that you guys can help out. Yeah.
Well, go ahead,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I love the shirt. I just noticed it. Noticed it. Not a communist. I'm a socialist, but I feel you with that. No, I was cracking up. But what? It turned out that like the government didn't rig that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the other problem. You know what I mean? Like we don't have any capacity. Like even when they're cheating, even when they're betting, even when they're doing horrible crap, what do? They still come in there and find a way to cheat and screw over everybody. Like a lot of people are losing money. What about the people who bought GameStop, stock? How much money did they lose? These are just like normal average day people, but the American government doesn't care about those people one iota. But yeah, no, I do hear you on that, and I just think that if you're gonna have the game, let's play it. You know what I mean?
And you're right. They came in real quick and stepped in and did their rigging and everything like that because they couldn't stand the welfare queens in Wall Street losing a single cent. So yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I said, I was fine with it because it was like everybody was kind of coming together and saying, yeah, this is because at the end of the day, it was what you said. It's if we're going to play this game, let's play this game. But they're showing that they want to play the game. They just don't want us to play the game. And that's how I feel about the big tech companies and how you guys are saying, especially even with banking, cryptocurrencies being banned in all kinds of major, countries and things like that, because those politicians are worried, the IMF and all that. And all these kind of central global bankers are like, whoa, we can't have the people have a currency that's completely decentralized and not tied to any big government regulatory body. Because then, where does that leave us as the big regulatory government and bodies?
And one of the major jobs of government is to create money, and it's also one of the major ways that the governments maintain a stranglehold on the population is the creation of currency. If you have an independent currency, that can cause some real problems. No, I think it's like a really good idea, honestly. Sorry, but
okay.
yeah.
Well, there's two things that I'd like to see as a tradition happen in every single I said this is something going out there. I said this is very memeable. So there's two things that I'd like to see passed at every single one of these multi-party get-togethers, and the first one is free Assange, and the second one is that we agree that the system is rigged, that the rich are taking too much and the poor are being left behind, and that if our leaders do not come together to try to help take care of this problem, that we will rise and we will join together as the base, and we will come together if our leaders will not, and we will make this change happen ourselves. Is that something that we can all agree to?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
cool. All right. So that's the first two things, right? Yeah, you'll see that usually I'll have at the beginning of every single session that I run, yeah, to try to make sure that those two things at least get covered. And then, hopefully you guys can go into, an infinity of different realms with that, yeah? So thanks for letting me get that in. Are there any other topics that you guys would like to see in agreement between, between multi-parties with? Healthcare, could be, corruption, anything.
Well, definitely the corruption one's a big one for sure. I mean, I think, I would say also probably I don't know too much about the two-party thing because I don't have that much faith in third parties personally. I think that, just the way that the electoral college is set up and everything like that, it kind of forces down two choices, but I'm open to that. Like, that's not something I have looked into too much myself.
Yeah, I mean, as a person who's been thinking about supporting third parties more and more and more, the issue is that a large portion, like the biggest problem that we have with stuff like gridlock in Washington, is that the majority of the people have wrongly been funneled into two parties when there's only one party. You know what I mean? The Republicans are there to actually represent the will of the ruling class, and the Democrats are there just to ensure that the left doesn't try to gain any level of power outside of the Democratic Party itself. You know what I mean? Like, the Democratic Party doesn't represent anything that I stand for whatsoever, and they're pretty much there to be like a pressure valve. You know what I mean? So if like the left-wing people really were like, listen, you're not even like a left-wing party, you know what I mean? You're a right-wing party, and we're not being represented. The Democratic Party and the media itself is there to tell everybody that the only left-wing party, the only left-wing action that can ever be done, that can ever be talked about, is the Democratic Party, to ensure that the corporate interests who have bought both of the parties off maintain and sustain the level of power and control that they have over the government currently. So
okay,
that's
so. One agreement that actually coming off of what you said right there that I'd like to make a recommendation for, right? Because I think that what you said is actually, so one thing that I think is relevant is to think that maybe we should keep the actions local. It's easy for us to get sucked up into maybe like national level work, yeah. But the thing is that if we want to get like ongoing, so let's, did you support Bernie back in 2016?
Me, yeah.
Okay.
I supported Bernie.
So one of the things that you'll hear if you talk to people who were like Bernie supporters early on, right? They were like, "Why are you a Bernie supporter? They know Hillary Clinton's just going to win." They'd say, "Look, I was actually in Vermont, and when I saw the difference that a government that actually gave a shit about people, about what it was able to accomplish, that's when I knew that this was for real. That's when I became a real Bernie Sanders supporter." Does that sound familiar to you? Those words?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Exactly. So local actions, right? So right now I'm hoping that we could get more of an agreement, right? Remember before I talked about a local action to get like, local laws passed? The thing is that it's easy for us to get caught up in these national issues, which we should continue to participate in. But unfortunately, there's often a neglect of local issues, and that's really where the power comes from. If you look at like the Vermont Progressive Party or other state parties that have made some real headway, that can really be a coalition of these groups into a national format can really be the true power going forward. And if you look into it and study it more, and invite you to come along with it. By the way, I just talked with I don't know if you saw the Progressive Party Organizing Fund. Remember I did the video with those guys? Did you see them? Have you seen that?
I did not.
There's a guy named Martin Ford who's actually a professor of, not that I always am down with intelligentsia or academics, right? Because I think there's its own problems as in terms of a class distinction there anyways. But, one of the very few professors of third parties in the country is about to come up with, I could open up the email now, yeah? But they're coming out with a series of events, and they have actually a speaker. Give me a second. Yeah, hold up. I don't want to show it on the screen, so I'm going to bring it up. I just
wanted to say that, I'm not like opposed to the third party thing, but On the Republican side, though, I think a lot of people, especially on the left that I've talked to, buy into the liberal lie. The liberal lie is that all Republicans are just clones from the middle of the country, hicks, who they just love worshiping like idols. Meanwhile, you had Bernie on y'all's side, right? That didn't count, though. As like this worshiping person.
Hey,
He fell short on everything.
Bernie agreed with me, bro. Bernie agreed with me, but I agree. Like liberals do this with Nancy Pelosi. It drives me nuts. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like she ripped up a piece of paper during Donald Trump's speech, and everybody's like, "Yas, Queen! Like, are you serious right now? Like, this is not opposition. You know what I mean?" So I would agree.
Yeah, and
with
there's
that.
a lot of flavors of kind of ideals on the Republican side too. I think they're a lot better at understanding who they feel like is their enemy, right? Which would be, I think for them, they really, like the lefties who want big consolidated government.
No,
so they're willing to sacrifice like some things and just get together
to fight against that typification.
Go for our guy.
I would like to argue against that. Now the thing is that, right?
Democrats who, even if they don't represent the left, if the Democrats are in power, it emboldens more leftist ideals, and that pressure builds up for the liberal Democrat Party, and then you get more austerity and government policies implemented. Okay. So I think that's where they come from, just being part of the Republican Party for a while.
But I just want to mention, the thing is that, right, I actually am in New York City. I actually do run into AOC. I actually work in things that she actually is next to. Like, I did a little bit of work with the Jamal Bowman campaign. I do actually, like my boy Mark, right? I don't know if you saw the video. He actually did get some disability stuff onto Jamal Bowman's campaign. Nobody talks about that. You see what I mean? So when you hear about this AOC Yas Queening, and I do actually am somewhat in touch with that community, guess what? Most of them are not like that. For real. You know what I mean? Even though the media might be portraying that AOC supporters are like that, or they might be pointing to the finger like to install division in y'all. It's really not like Pelosi. That. And their ground game is phenomenal. Yeah. The thing is that, as in terms of Tulsi, right? Yeah. We struggled to get like maybe even one person calling in the nation. Some weeks. AOC's unit is so strong. They have 8 people calling, right? How many people do you know phone bank for candidates right now? You know what I mean? Really affecting the electoral process right now. Don't give a damn. I'm in there slinging hard, yeah? AOC's crew is so strong. They have 8 people calling after the election's over, just thanking people. Most crews cannot even get 8 people on election day. Yo, that's the difference between their squad is deep and strong. So you can diss them and say, ha, you know what I mean, from ideological standpoint, but what do you know about their organizational strength and how deep their membership is? And most of the membership does not think like you guys are talking about. That's what you guys are, the image you guys are sold on Twitter. Fuck that. Get to know these people for real. It's a different story.
Well, I was talking about Nancy Pelosi, not AOC.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No. It was. I was talking about when Nancy Pelosi ripped.
I know Young Democrats. It's a little disturbing. Yeah, it's a little bit more like you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're
right.
So
I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm talking about the liberals.
Them,
yeah. No, I know. I get you. It's just like the people who are just like, Joe Biden's great. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like I'm light skinned, but like as a black person, knowing what Joe Biden did, you know, I take issue with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my position of just like people replace a personal identity and they put it as a political party. You know what I mean? Like their identity becomes like, oh, I'm a Republican, or their identity becomes
and that's a big problem on both sides. I feel like.
I would agree. I would agree 100% with that. Like, I think that people should be able to think for themselves, to look at the information for themselves, determine their own system of thought, determine their own system of evaluation, and see if it's something that they support.
Yeah, knowing what I know from being in them organizations, like if I look at your presentation right there and I think about how much AOC doing for me directly and like the events that I'm partaking in and how many people's participating and you trying to sell me, I ain't buying. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I know from each angle by participating in each of the organizations what their strengths are, and how they can really interact with them.
Yeah. There's also the other side of it is you don't want to become too decentralized and not have a leader, because you look at what's going on with Black Lives Matter and the decentralizing there. Nothing. It's got nothing accomplished because it's decentralized. There's no leadership to take responsibility, ownership, and steer the ship somewhere. So with politics too, you have to have that kind of, you can't just be like, well, these are my 15 things, and if you don't agree with one single one, that's my moral characteristics right there. Man, I'm not, you have to have like maybe 1, 2, or 3 issues that you deeply care about that you're like, this is really something I want to do. And even out of those three, if somebody comes along and really advocates for one, and there's something that's gathering around that, I think that this idea that you're sacrificing it's like, no, you're I don't know, because you can get kind of caught up in either one, like just worshiping the Democratic Party and that's your identity, or the Republican Party, no matter what they say, even if it goes against some things that you believe. And then there's also the counter to that, like, oh, I want complete decentralization.
Yeah.
I want to be part of the leadership, and everybody needs to be part of it. And nobody's a leader, and we have 70 different policies that I love, that you love. It's like,
but you're right to be suspicious of the Democrat, because this is what, like, I saw the Sunrise. I didn't even know they were Sunrise at the time. I just saw a whole bunch of kids making a whole bunch of phone calls, and I said, God damn, because they were actually making more calls than the adults. Yeah. So I went to, like, because I was in the Jamal Bowman, like I was there studying what was going on. In fact, I went to help a lot of other candidates because I said, y'all got this. I could tell y'all are kicking. I knew they were gonna win already. I didn't need some fucking pundit to tell me that he was gonna win. You know what I mean? I was there, and I knew exactly what was going down. You know what I mean? And yes, they are being, unfortunately, turned into, and being, that movement is being subjugated, and that movement is being, driven into the ground, and I'm really sorry to see that. You know what I mean? I've seen it happen so many times before. So you guys are right when I'm saying work with them, right? It's not saying that, like, co-sign what they do. Hell no, right? Yeah. But if you're there and you know what's up, right, you can be like, guys, I think this is different. Maybe we should think about another way. You guys should think about this. You could tell those kids, you know what I mean? Well, honestly, you're making that move. I get that what they're putting before you, right? They're going to give you this leadership position. They're going to put you in front of these people. They're going to give you the access. They're going to give you the title. But I'm telling you right now, with my experience, you want to look out for these things, right? Yeah. That's part of what I do too, by messing around these organizations, and that's why I run into a lot of heat. Yeah, because I'd be telling them.
It's real. Put them
it's
on. Real.
Yeah, we need you out there, man.
All right, man. Yeah, I gotta head out, but I appreciate you having me on.
Yo, it's all good, man. Yo, you gotta go. You're the boy. Yeah. Yo, I want to talk with Sean anyways after this, so I'm pretty much gonna wrap up the video. Yo, we're gonna do this again next week. Hopefully more participation. Thanks for checking us out. Yeah, I want to talk with Sean after this. I'm gonna end with Izzy. I'm gonna see you. All right, one love, brother. Peace.
All right, nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too, bro.
All right, cool, man. So I'm gonna stop.